Okay, so I thought I would talk a little bit more today about bin Laden's death, because it's on everybody's mind and the internet is just exploding with things. And so just to make a few observations, yesterday when we were talking some more about it, we were saying how when we're angry and we retaliate, then there may be a certain moment of satisfaction. Oh, I got even. But that moment of satisfaction quickly transforms into fear, because we become quite aware that when we harm somebody, they are going to harm us back. Okay? So the whole idea of revenge not bringing complete peace in the heart, not bringing closure. Okay? Then another point I was thinking, just my statements yesterday when I was saying that somebody who's doing harmful things, we need to stop them from doing that. First, you of course try to talk with the person. You know, I'm not talking strictly about bin Laden here, although I do think that it would have been good if our country had made more effort to really have a dialogue and see what was on the mind of the people doing the terrorist attacks. What were their needs? What were their concerns? Okay, and then starting some dialogue. But sometimes you're in a situation where that isn't possible. They don't want to talk to you, yeah, or they can't, or whatever the situation is. And so at that time, then you know you have to do something to stop the person from doing harmful actions. Now, today being the next day, there's all sorts of stuff, and you know, suspicion about the Pakistanis, and some people rejoicing that he's dead, some people mourning that he's dead, and so many different reactions. And to remember, this is a very good example of how there's no objective existence. Because if there were an objective external reality, everybody would react to it in exactly the same way. But that's certainly not what is happening here. It's everybody, the way the situation is being perceived, interpreted, is different according to different people's perspective and their way of thinking. And then their emotional reaction follows upon their interpretation, according to whichever interpretation. So there's not one size fits all, and that's a very good indication of why there's not any kind of objective reality, you know? And how important it is when there's so much an explosion of different emotions about it, and different accusations. And, you know, why did they give, you know, some people saying, oh, we don't know that he's really dead because we don't have the body, and then the government not really wanting to show gory pictures. That's kind of not so good. That might incite more revenge or whatever. So you have all these people saying all these different kinds of things. And for our own part, to try as much as possible to just stay really steady and really balanced in the understanding that everybody is in a difficult situation because their minds are under the influence of ignorance, anger, and attachment, and because our lives are under the influence of previously created karma. And so to have that view that, okay, you're getting all these different opinions, all this whirlwind, why? Because we're under the influence of afflictions and karma, and that's the way it's going to be. And so to try and hold our minds as much as possible in a feeling of equanimity and a feeling of compassion for everybody who's involved in the situation. Okay? Now, of course, the compassion is going to take different forms according to who we're talking about, you know. When we talk about compassion, it doesn't mean that we want everybody to have their way, because clearly in this kind of situation, not everybody can have their way. And we're not talking about compassion, meaning that everybody know what everybody thinks they want is necessarily good. Because lots of times sentient beings think that a certain thing is going to alleviate their suffering, and that's exactly what causes more suffering. Okay? So when we're saying that, you know, compassion means wanting sentient beings to be free of suffering and the causes of suffering, we have to look beyond, you know, the circumstance that's happening now that seems to be the cause of suffering, to what the real suffering is, and want them to be free of that suffering. Okay, so the suffering of being in cyclic existence, the suffering of being under the control of afflictions and polluted karma. Okay, because if we're just looking at the superficial suffering, what people are unhappy about this lifetime, it can be very hard to come up with a solution where everybody's going to be free from whatever their particular suffering is. Yeah? Now, very often if we discuss things, we can come to a resolution where people can, where both parties can get their ends met if they're talking. But that's not always possible. Yeah? But sometimes it is possible if you have a discussion, and so, you know, of course you want that first. But to hold compassion on a much longer, deeper way, okay? And keeping our mind steady in that, instead of letting the mind getting buffeted around by this one saying this and that one saying that. What's this one, that one think? And, you know, and I can't stand being with my relative who is, you know, hating bin Laden, or I can't stand to be with my other relative who is lauding bin Laden, and, you know, and just like have the big picture. Everybody wants happiness and not suffering. Everybody's under the influence of afflictions and karma. Yeah? And so in that way to hold the mind steady. Okay? And of course to make many prayers and dedications in the future that all of us can not be so under the influence of afflictions and karma, you know? And not do things that are harmful to others. Okay.